Nine Hong Kong residents arrested in Kevin Lau knife attack case. Communications Authority hits back at HKTV over mobile TV service, and still no trace of the missing Malaysia Airlines plane.
Good evening. Two Hong Kong residents have been arrested in Dongguan, Guangdong province in connection with the knife attack on former Mingpao chief editor Kevin Lau. Another 7 people suspected of helping plan the attack have been arrested in Hong Kong. Joao de Silva reports.
Investigators have worked tirelessly round the clock since taking over the case and succeeded in identifying the 2 suspected assailants, whom they believed have absconded to the mainland. Assistance was sought from the Ministry of Public Security in Beijing and the Public Security Bureau in Guangdong to track down the suspected assailants. We have been informed that the 2 have been arrested in Guangdong.
Police believe the 2 men, both Hong Kong residents and 37 years old, belong to the same triad society. The return of the suspected assailants to Hong Kong will now have to be negotiated with mainland authorities because there is no extradition agreement between the SAR and the mainland. But police believe they have a solid case against the alleged attackers and their charges will be pressed as soon as they return to Hong Kong. And another 7 men, all Hong Kong residents, were arrested across the city on suspicion of assisting in the planning of the attack. As to who may have ordered it and with what motive, that is still under investigation.
We will leave no stone unturned. The investigation is still ongoing. At the moment, we suspect that the assailants were hired and that they had tribe background. And of the 7 other persons whom we have arrested, we suspect that they have varying degree of participation. Now, we will not rule out any motive at the moment, but according to information in hand, there is nothing to tie this directly to journalistic work.
This afternoon, Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying praised Hong Kong police for their professionalism and thanked mainland authorities for their help in capturing the suspects. The former chief editor of the Mingpao newspaper, Kevin Lau, was attacked in broad daylight on his street in Sai Wan Ho late last month. The assailants left him there covered in chop wounds. Today, his wife, Vivian Chen, said she expects him to leave the hospital in late March and move into a recovery institution for 3 to 6 months of rehabilitation. Joao de Silva, TVB News.
The chief executive today announced plans for all 70 lawmakers to visit Shanghai next month. Lun Cheng-ying said arrangements will be made for those who do not have home return permits.
Members of the Legislative Council has always expressed a wish to visit the mainland, and I have expressed my support. The delegation will be led by the President of the Legislative Council, and I shall join them in Shanghai. I shall fly direct from Boao, where I shall attend the Boao Forum. The date will be the 12th and the 13th of April.
The Communications Authority insisted today that it informed Hong Kong Television Network 2 months ago it would need to make changes to its mobile TV service plan. The company has been asked to obtain a free-to-air TV or pay TV license because it upgraded its transmission standards. HKTV Chairman Ricky Wong is now calling on the Communications Authority to install filters in buildings so that HKTV won't be in breach of the ordinance. Rani Samtani reports.
It has been a war of words between the Communications Authority and businessman Ricky Wong. The Communications Authority claims it warned Wong at a meeting in January to change his broadcasting plans. According to the authority's chairman, Hong Kong Television Network will have to follow broadcasting ordinance regulations because it upgraded its transmission standards to digital terrestrial multimedia broadcasting, or DTMB.
The DTMB standard is now the same standard used by ATV and TVB in providing their digital television service. Therefore, it exceeds it goes beyond what is the mobile television license that Mr. Wong is currently holding.
HKTV's current license only permits it to transmit its programs to mobile devices such as smartphones, tablets, and laptops. The authority explained that with DTMB, anyone using a special device would be able to access HKTV programs on their TVs at home. But Wong disagreed.
They did not say absolutely not on January 24th. They just remind us that if we use the DTMB, it may trigger the broadcasting ordinance. So during the meetings, we have been discussing some technical measure, how to ensure that we will not breach the BO.
Speaking on a radio program this morning, he claims he was blindsided by the Communications Authority. Wong said from his understanding, HKTV is allowed to play its shows as long as it uses mobile technology for transmitting. But the Communications Authority is recommending that HKTV stick with the China Mobile Multimedia Broadcasting or CMMB standards that China Mobile was using before. Wong argued that the DTMB standard will allow them to broadcast high-definition content, and he said the CMMB standard will become outdated in the near future. Wong believes the best solution is for the Communications Authority to install filters in buildings to prevent households from watching his programs on their TVs. Wong says as long as his programs can only be viewed on mobile devices, he should not be in breach of the broadcasting ordinance. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
Experts we talked to today suggest Ricky Wong may have stepped into a gray area as he seeks a different transmission standard. Evelina Leung has that story.
Experts say when Ricky Wong's Hong Kong television network bought China Mobile's mobile spectrum, it came with the transmission standard known as China Mobile Multimedia Broadcasting, or CMMB.
For CMMB, the assumption is that the video or streaming are designed for small mobile devices, for example, mobile phone or small tablets.
So all the programs are of lower resolution. But there is no such constraint with Digital Terrestrial Multimedia Broadcasting, or DTMB, that Wong wants his company to use now. DTMB provides a higher resolution so that programs can be played on an array of devices, from phones to televisions. Henry Zheng of the Hong Kong Institution of Engineers said the current two free-to-air TV stations, TVB and ATV, are using DTMB. He believes Wong has now stepped into a grey area when asking for the change. But Zheng explains that even if HKTV gets to use DTMB, this doesn't mean its programs can be seen at most homes, because there are still many technical issues involved. Government sources insist the decision by the Communications Authority did not personally target Ricky Wong, and questioned if the change is indeed necessary. Evelyn Lang, TVB News.
A massive air, land, and sea search has wrapped up its fourth straight day, but there's still no trace of Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. Utter confusion is now plaguing efforts to find the jetliner after a Malaysian military official insists he never said the plane turned away from its planned route. Confusion is mounting over contradictory statements made by Malaysian civil aviation authorities and the military. Both were quoted as saying their military radar readings showed the missing flight flew southwest to the Strait of Malacca for over 1 hour after losing contact with the Air Control Center. But today, General Radzali Daud denied that, saying he never made any such statement. Referring to an earlier statement, he claims he simply did not rule out the possibility of the jetliner making an air turn back. But the erroneous report resulted in widening the search to a 185-kilometer radius to ensure both land and waters are scrutinized. Vietnam is now demanding Malaysian authorities confirm what they know so as not to waste precious time and resources. But Chinese authorities refuse to lose hope. According to the Chinese ambassador to Malaysia, they're intensifying efforts to find the plane.
Chinese government also sent about 10 vessels, including Navy vessels and professional rescue vessels, to join this rescue operation.
Meantime, Malaysian authorities invited a well-known witch doctor to perform a ritual to call back the flight. While performing the ritual, the witch doctor said his vision turned black, which means the plane crashed in the sea or it is still in the air. Police say they are now investigating whether passengers or crew had any psychological problems. Malaysian Airlines said it has no reason to believe any of its crew caused the plane's disappearance. As the search enters its 5th day, Navy ships, military aircraft, helicopters, Coast Guard, and civilian vessels vow to continue scouring land and sea.
Crimea's parliament voted Tuesday for the Black Sea Peninsula to declare itself an independent state if its electorate votes to cause it to split from Ukraine in a referendum Sunday. Alan Booknia has more details.
While the ballot gives Crimeans a choice between staying with Ukraine or joining Russia, the regional legislature says it will instead first become an independent state if the vote is to join Russia. That move would give Moscow the option of saying there's no need to annex Crimea, while still keeping it firmly within its sphere of influence. Russia's lower house of parliament, the Duma, welcomed the news. A statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry urged the West to respect the right of Crimeans to determine their own fate in accordance with the norms of international law. But Western nations have denounced any referendum as illegitimate. The U.S. State Department said Secretary of State John Kerry spoke with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov Tuesday, but the discussion didn't achieve much, with Kerry saying what the U.S. wants and the Russians responding.
He also reiterated his willingness to continue to engage with Foreign Minister Lavrov, including this week, but that the environment has to be right and the goal must be to protect the immunity and sovereignty of Ukraine. And we didn't see that, obviously, in the responses that we received back.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian troops manned checkpoints near the border with Crimea as the country's interim leaders established a new National Guard. Lawmakers lamented how ill-equipped the army is, noting that Ukraine has as few as 6,000 combat-ready troops, compared with more than 200,000 Russian troops at its eastern border. Ukraine's interim Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk again called for Western nations to defend the country against Russia. Yatsenyuk is due to meet with U.S. President Barack Obama in Washington later today. And in neighboring Poland, air forces of that country and the United States began war games as Washington made a gesture of support for its eastern NATO allies. Washington said the air drills and its joint naval drills with Bulgaria and Romania in the Black Sea were planned before the crisis in Ukraine began. Alan Booknia, TVB News.
In Turkey, violent street fights broke out between riot police and demonstrators in Istanbul and Ankara. The clashes erupted just hours after the death of a teenager who was injured during last summer's anti-government protests. Riot police had to push back crowds in Ankara's central square using water cannon, tear gas, and rubber bullets. In central Istanbul, similar police force was used against hundreds of protesters there. 14-year-old Birkin Elvin was hit in the head last June with a tear gas canister launched by police. He remained in a coma until his death yesterday morning in Istanbul. Angry protesters hold Turkey's Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan accountable for his death. Several policemen were questioned about the boy's death, but none have been charged. And still ahead in our newscast, a top U.S. senator accuses CIA of spying on Congress. The CPPCC concludes its annual session. And Cathay Pacific's net profit more than tripled last year.